Good morning. My name's Andrew Mackenzie, and it is my ridiculous pleasure to be able to spend the day with you and with our speakers today. So we'll kick off with our first speaker of today, Liam Young. He's an Australian-born speculative architect, filmmaker, performer, and founder of Tomorrow's Thoughts Today. That chronological or apparently chronological paradox is not accidental, because while he is sometimes accused of being somewhat dystopian, as he said to me last night, it's not dystopia, it's documenting contemporary reality. At the core of his multidisciplinary practice is an interrogation of the corresponding realities of contemporary urban conditions and those parts of the world that are connected to cities through supply chain dependencies, through human resource migration, and through subtle historical and cultural narratives. His work sits somewhere between documentary and fiction, and he reveals the invisible connections and systems that make the modern world work. Liam lives an intercontinental life, dividing his time between London and LA, living a life of what some would call a perpetual jet lag. I asked him last night, how does he deal with it? Does he take melatonin, or does he have some kind of sleep-wake cycle trick to play? But he said, no, I just feel permanently, I won't say the word. He travels a lot. Liam has taught internationally at the Architectural Association, Princeton University, and now runs the master's program in a deliciously titled course called Fiction and Entertainment at SciArc in Los Angeles. But he's here with us today, so please make him very welcome to the podium this morning.
Right. Yes, it's great to be here. Thanks so much for everyone that made this extraordinary event possible. It's also great to be able to open the Living Cities Forum. I have to admit, though, it's going to be a bit of a brutal start to the day. As Andrew suggested, I'm not known for my optimism, but sometimes you just got to play it where it lays, I suppose. But perhaps we can treat this first session as a way of just laying out the groundwork, treating that as an important first step in thinking about how we might move forward towards more productive futures. Because really what I do is, I don't design buildings. I'm perhaps what's best described as a speculative architect, which means I tell stories about the global, urban, and architectural implications of new technologies. So we borrow from techniques of fiction, film, and performance to collect and visualize stories of landscapes and cities, both real and imagined, in order to engage audiences with the extraordinary ways that technology is changing our world. And we cite our work within the distributed geologies of the Anthropocene, a geological epoch that we all occupy where technology is the dominant force shaping the planet. So this morning I'm going to do a live storytelling mix where we're going to travel round to the dark side of our luminous screens to see the shadows cast by our glittering cities of technology. It's really a story of the Anthropocene, but more so a story of what comes next, a portrait of a place that's not for us, where in many ways we are no longer at its center, but we are inhabiting and existing with an ecology of machines that constitute what we're going to talk about as a fictional city called City Everywhere, a landscape, a world endlessly remade, reshaped, and engineered by, through, and for our machines. So across the next 40 minutes, we're going to tour a collection of sites, documented moments, and vignettes of a new city, a city of the post-Anthropocene digital world that we're calling City Everywhere. So in the landscapes of City Everywhere, there is no city and country, there is no center and periphery, but there's just a continuous city of technology that's stretched across the planet. I want to tell you a selection of tales from the dark side of technology and take you through an atlas of geographies, gadgets, and objects that will form a portrait of this emerging place. Think of it as a kind of city symphony. stitched together from documentary footage of real sites that we've visited with our nomadic research studio, Unknown Fields, that I run from London with another architect, Kate Davies, but also the short fragments of speculative film projects that I exaggerate or extrapolate out of these conditions with my own urban futures practice. So to see this city everywhere, we're also going to jump into the back seat of this driverless taxi, and we're going to head out on safari. And the city operating system, the city AI, is riding shotgun beside us. And we're going to travel through a collection of these sites from the edges of the city, where we'll see where all our contemporary technologies begin their lives. And then we're going to keep on going into the core of that city to see ourselves and the strange creatures that we're becoming. So as we drive, here we are in our taxi, and the smart city is sitting beside us, and it smells of hard drives and fiber optics and Red Bull soda. And the electric motor hums and we all rumble on quietly. I've invited you on this road trip across my technological skin, the city operating system says in its automated voice. It's looking forward to showing us around, to visit the sites and structures made for and by its machines, sites of this planetary-scaled city where nothing has escaped. And together we're going to trace their edges. We're going to explore their glitches and anomalies to see where these invisible systems, these invisible machines, often bubble to the surface to condense into the landscapes, the architectures, and the natures of our emerging cities. And the city starts by taking us back to the beginning of the beginning, it says, where seconds from zero, 13.8 billion years ago, the creation story of lithium, a fundamental component in all our technology, begins. So from the spark of the Big Bang to the flicker of an electron jumping from the batteries in our phone, it was there at the dawn of time. And in this vast cloud of swirling cosmic matter, gravity and violent collapse, the sphere of the Earth took form, and embedded within its surface were traces of lithium. And here we drive along the azure shores of the city's energy pools, through Chile and Bolivia, through a land no longer of an indigenous population, but of evaporation ponds of the world's largest lithium mines. So this is the landscape behind the scenes of all the batteries that power our technology. 70% of the world's lithium is here, the city says. And you can't see it on the desperately flat horizon or access it by any public road. Its mystery is protected by its isolation. But through the eyes of a drone, we see our technology splayed out before us. Because lithium development is not mining through extraction, but through evaporation. And we see a tessellated ocean of evaporation ponds where each shift in hue signals a rising concentration of lithium salts. And from the above, the earth comes alive with the color of lithium electricity. And on a stage in California, another world away, Elon Musk, the tech evangelist and entrepreneur, proclaims his vision for a green future, a world where everything will be solar in 20 years. And like most Silicon Valley preachers, he's presenting to us a seductive future, a hopeful future, but at the same time, it's a decidedly uncomplicated one. Because now Elon Musk must literally buy Bolivia and evolve it as the new Dubai, because if the future is electric, if the future is Elon Musk and his Tesla-fueled dreams, then the future is also buried here beneath the salt flats of Bolivia. and we keep on driving. And we see from a clearing in the point cloud mist the cavernous landscapes of our ephemeral technologies. So it's in these massive mining excavations scattered on the edge of the world that our city everywhere begins and ends its life. So we each have a little bit of the gold or aluminium from these sites in the technologies in our pockets, charged and quietly vibrating. An Aboriginal Dreamtime narrative speak of a time when the ground was soft and creation beings shaped mountains and rivers, when a snake slinked across the ground to create a river and a wild dog came to rest to form a mountain. But now, as the lights of the city wash out the sky, these songlines are walked by the ancestral spirits, but they're also sung anew with the tracks laid down by the beasts of the mining industry. So the dreaming landscape that embodies the creation stories of Australians is overlaid with a vast infrastructure of resource speculation and financial fictions. And in the sky, geological survey planes track back and forth, laser scanning the Earth, searching for topographic anomalies that indicate pockets of undiscovered minerals in the ground. And now the digital models of these landscapes are linked live to the fluctuations of metal prices on the stock market. And as explosive diggers and drills replace the slow erosion of rivers and earthquakes, in these landscapes we're scoring our economy into the archaeological record. The ground becomes a chronicle of the digital permutations that drive the modern world. And in this same landscape, we see vehicles just like the one we're now driving in, that no longer have drivers, but that are just systems. And mining trucks rumble up mountains, and tractors carve soil along GPS trails generated by the city's satellites spinning about above us. And now we drive deeper into the dust, and we see the rhythms of the human conveyor belts of Madagascar. So one of the planet's most precious ecological treasures is home to one of its poorest nations. And it's a landscape that raises difficult questions about the relationship between luxury, technology, and necessity. And as the beat drops and the stage lights strobe, a pop star flashes their designer bling for the camera in a flurry of choreographed dance moves. And at the same time, another world away, in the hole in the ground in the Wild West mining town of Ilikaka, another choreography of bodies moves in rhythm to dig dirt by hand out of a gemstone mine. So almost all of the world's sapphires are now pulled out of the ground by the human conveyor belts of Madagascar's gem fields. For such a remote island, it contains an extraordinary amount of high-value resources. Precious gems were deposited here by an ancient river that once flowed across Africa before a tectonic shift ripped it from the mainland to form the island of Madagascar. And the stones collected in a pocket along the riverbed, resting patiently beneath 20 meters of dirt and the future boomtown of Ilikaka. And here, hidden amongst political uncertainty, the island's fragile and unique ecology is smuggled out illegally, boat by boat, gem by gem. And red tortoises leave in rucksacks, and forests are carved into $1 million rosewood beds to be exported to China. And precious stones are shoveled from the earth and smuggled onto the stage in pop star bling. And these digging machines excavate all of these stones from these illegal mines where it's cheaper to pay 20 men in rice than it is to maintain and fuel a mechanical conveyor belt. And a hidden black market supply chain connects these two choreographies, the lawless mine sites and the jewelry stores, hip-hop music videos, and celebrity red carpets across the ocean. So for the jewelry of City Everywhere, unknown fields have used the amount of rice the human conveyor belt consumes in a day to manufacture a single precious stone that embodies the systems through which these worlds are intimately and profoundly connected. So the red Madagascan rice that's grown endemically on this treasured island is collected for carbon analysis. And by subjecting the rice to extreme heat and pressure in the laboratory, we're able to form a single synthetic stone encoded with the sum of the human conveyor belt's labor. And after manufacture, the gemstone has been set into a gold tooth, ready for that $1 million smile and the outrageous lyric. So from kilojoules to carats to the nightclub, in the glare of this cheeky gold grin, we see the cost of luxury, of beauty, of a daily allowance of rice, of 20 men shoveling at the bottom of a hole. And we jump back in our taxi, and we keep on driving, and we follow the breadcrumbs of our technology, and we arrive at a village organized around metals and hardware components. And we see another group of villagers buried not by soil, but by collected piles of e-waste gathered in their houses. And these mines are discarded technologies surrounding their living, sleeping, and eating spaces. And now they mine their domestic landscapes for neodymium, lead, nickel, and copper. And next to the pot of noodles simmers the acid bath, dissolving circuit wafers and flavoring soup. And our taxi keeps on rolling, and we arrive up to the shores of the radioactive lake in Inner Mongolia that sits beside the world's largest rare earth mineral refinery. And we take a selfie with our phones, and we see our reflection in the mirrored screen, because the material to run its software and polish its glass produces this very lake. And collapsed together in a single luminous surface, we see ourselves and this black, black earth. And now from this black sludge, we're making a vase for the city operating system to thank it for showing us around. It's a set of vases made from the amount of waste created in the production of 3 objects: an iPhone, a MacBook, and a Tesla electric battery. It's a new material aesthetic for the technologies born of the earth. It's a Ming vase for the city everywhere generation. And now the city takes us to visit where all these raw materials are refined and shaped into the familiar objects that fill our lives. Almost all of the world's Christmas decorations are made here, the city says. And they're all made by the human machines of the city that are now orchestrated by efficiency algorithms. These are the real robots of our new landscapes and cities of technology, where the body is matched in speed to the conveyor belt that turns in front of it. And in factories like this one, we find 90% of the world's electronics. And we brand our technologies with words like the cloud or the air, but in reality, they're violently wrenched from the earth. And as our personal electronics tend towards the invisible, they conjure in their shadows an undeniably visible grey mountain, a 1 kilometre deep pit, a 10 square kilometre radioactive tailings lake, all a counterweight to the apparent immateriality of computing, communications, and electric energy. And from our tour, we can see that the infrastructures of the digital world have these extraordinary implications on material experience. These are the architectures beyond the fog of the screen, beyond the cloud. These are the physical outputs of our digital engagements with the world. But in City Everywhere, can we start to imagine redesigning our gadgets, not based on how they might slide into our pockets or feel in our hand, but for the networks that they begin to set in motion, or the economic resources they might distribute? If we can map and understand all these systems we're traveling through, then what would the alternative design criteria be if they weren't engineered around cheap labor costs and availability? And we keep on driving, and we see in the same area of the city a model who pouts, and a whip of her hip catches the eye on the catwalks. And fast fashion's rolling tide dumps mountains of cheap clothing onto high street stores. Objects of desire worn for one wild night and destined to be discarded. And now on our tour through city everywhere, we pick at a loose thread on the garment we're wearing, and we unravel it across continents from wardrobe to warehouse, from factory to field, in search of the landscapes behind our runway dreams and street blue jeans. Because before we wore them, our clothes made journeys of tens of thousands of miles in their process of production, making textiles the most globalized industry on the planet. And the byproduct of this pace and scale of production is the destruction of the very thing that brought this industry to Southeast Asia originally. And here on our tour, we meet the last generation of master weavers, a group whose skills will now die with them. Because the apprentices they would once train now man the rumbling mechanical looms of global fashion, with raw cotton plugging their ears, deaf to the din of the world around them. And here we visit the last gold thread maker, an alchemist, lovingly tweaking the machine his grandfather made, resisting the move to synthetic, cheap, and fake yarns used by all the other companies around him. And spanning from fashion victims to victims of fashion, for the cloth of city everywhere, unknown fields weave a collaborative textile with the last gold thread maker and one of the last master weavers in Varanasi. And audio from a series of interviews has been encoded into this binary pattern we see on our screen and woven into the cloth. So the textile becomes an archive, encoded with the skills and stories of a dying craft, and woven from the same hands that it's trying to remember. And to make the thread for the textile, we follow the container ships that bring fast fashion to our shores all the way to their death, where after their 25-year short lifespan, they wind up back on the shores of India and Bangladesh to be broken up and salvaged in the shipbreaking yards. And we collected fragments of this raw steel from the Bangladeshi shores, cut from the rusting carcasses of dead ships. And this steel formed the core of the gold thread. So it becomes a textile archive born from the skeletons of the industry that brought it into being. And the cloth now covers a young Indian textile worker who walks slowly on a sacred procession from her home village amongst the cotton fields to the huge mills and factories of the vast textile industry where she works. And as she walks across city everywhere, she's gradually wrapped in this glistening gold textile, bearing witness to a series of transformations like weaving, dyeing, sewing, and pressing. And her journey suggests the walk along the fashion catwalk and the walk that our disposable fashion takes in its global production, and the path so many women like her have taken in moving from village to factory to city. And her journey ends as she's completely cocooned, standing at the huge container port amongst the mega container ships that will export her and everything we wear all the way to the West. And we travel on this journey because city everywhere isn't a place that can be described as a single point on a map. Our technologies cast shadows that stretch across the earth. And now as we keep driving, we pack up all the objects and materials produced in these sites and we send them off in ships around the world. This is the computer-controlled container fleet of the mega shipping industry that now navigates autonomously based on GPS satellites. And the ship captain and the portside crane operators, just like our taxi driver, have also been made obsolete. And in the north, as the ice melts, the busiest shipping lane in human history is opening up. The mythical Northwest Passage, a true incentive for climate deniers. A route that will cut global shipping times in half. But here, the cities of the Arctic coast would still stand empty, filled with the unmanned beasts of global trade. Autonomous machine cities, just like the rest of our ports. And from our taxi, we see a lone engineer and her dog head back from a maintenance run. Like a lighthouse keeper, just her, the horizon, and the creaking cranes. Her body repurposed as a component in the landscape-scaled robot that stacks the containers, ready for transport, bringing our goods all the way home. And we keep on traveling.
This is about the Sandy Island mystery that was in the Sydney Morning Herald. Sandy Island was actually found on Google Earth.
So as we travel across this pixel sea, we encounter GPS artifacts, and we're explorers in this strange new land. And just off the coast of City Everywhere is a place called Sandy Island, a collection of dark pixels, GPS coordinates, hyperlinks, and stories. It was originally charted by the whaling ship Velocity back in 1876, but the island has long been what's called an evidence-doubtful landmass. Perhaps it was a mistake. It was a mislabeled pile of volcanically ejected pumice seen drifting on the horizon. But whatever it was, this cartographic apparition remained visible in our Google Earth models of the city until an Australian research vessel confirmed its non-existence during a 2012 expedition to survey the ocean floor. And up until that point, to a world of Google explorers and hyperlink adventurers, Sandy Island was just as real as any other place they visited online. It raises the question that if the places and spaces that we inhabit exist solely in the mediums through which we experience them, then perhaps they become just as real as anything physical. Geographies with a hashtag, buildings of coordinates that fade in and out. Buildings like this one. And our taxi rolls up to the shores of the Amazon Fulfillment Center. And stretching out before us are the endless shelves and storage bins of the Amazon Center, and we see, rushing through the stacks, robots navigating from book to book, filling orders by following the most efficient route generated for them by their navigational programming. And in a way, this is the library of City Everywhere. That's not organized around the Dewey Decimal System, but by buying habits and aggregated data sets. It's a library that isn't organized for us, but it's a space organized by algo logics and inhabited by bodies repurposed as machines. And we look up when we follow the Amazon Prime drone that's zipping about above us. Drifting above this sea of neon haze in City Everywhere, drones are becoming as ubiquitous as pigeons. And we customize our drones like we once did our phones, and they follow us around. And the air is filled with the digital confetti of our every desire. And the traffic lights flock at rush hour. And our packages rain down in an Amazon hailstorm. And here the rumble of drone propellers becomes a new natural soundscape to the city of a new generation. And they deliver our pizzas. Hot dog stuffed crusts is how we like them now, the city says. And all the dogs in the city are walked by drones now. Think of the time saving, the city smiles. And as we keep on driving, we see a network of drones that now monitor the wayward youth of a London council estate. And we watch as a young girl has hacked and decorated her own drone. And now she uses it to pass notes to her boyfriend, who's trapped under surveillance by the drones in the tower opposite. And like kids passing notes back and forth in an old-fashioned classroom, they scribble messages on the drone, and they send it back and forth between the towers. And in this near-future city, drones form both agents of state surveillance, but can also become co-opted as the aerial vehicles through which two teenagers might fall in love. And another drone, armed just with a dildo, disrupts a Russian parliamentary session. And another drone, armed with a different kind of cylindrical device, zips overhead en route to attack a village in a country half a world away. And we get back in our taxi, and we keep driving. And now we're getting closer to the sites of the city where we find ourselves living. And our taxi takes us to the residential districts, to the Samsung towers. And we put our ears to the cool beveled aluminium door of one of the apartments, and we listen to the conversation inside. Through the door, we hear Juri drop her Samsung Galaxy SX phone onto the kitchen table, and we hear it chime softly with the Samsung Qi smart-powered charging mat. We hear her scream down the hallway at her husband, raising her voice over the Samsung air conditioner. "Why does the new TV say LG on it?" she says. Her husband replies, "What do you mean? Because it's made by LG." She screams, "Are you trying to get us thrown out?" He says, "Our lease is up for review in 3 months, and you bought an LG TV into a Samsung housing block." She screams, "What the hell will the neighbors say?" And the city and I just shrug. The city glares at us with a million sensor eyes. It runs on Apple and doesn't care for the tribulations of the Samsungese. And we go to another apartment, and we listen to the conversation
South
inside.
Korean woman got a rude awakening when she left her robot vacuum to do the cleaning while she took a nap. The vacuum cleaner reportedly mistook the woman for dust, locked onto her hair and tried to suck it up. The vacuum suction was far from gentle, and wrenched the woman from her slumber. The woman's hair then became entangled in the cleaning device. The woman, who has not been named, was unable to free herself and called the fire department with a desperate rescue plea.
So the fire department pushes past us, heading inside to rescue one of the owners as the robot vacuum cleaner attacks her head. And through another door, we hear Heinz apologize after a QR code on a ketchup bottle links to a hardcore porn site. The resident scanned the label to read about the latest recipe promotion, but was instead directed to German porn site Fundorado. And we keep on driving, and now we head into the beating, purring, and whirring heart of the city. And we drive along the aisles of Facebook machines, past all of our messages, photos, inane chatter, hopes, dreams, desires, and darkest fears. The electric car motor has given way to the whir of cooling fans. And these buildings aren't grand cathedrals, they're not great libraries, but at a time when our collective history is digital, this is our generation's cultural legacy. And perhaps we will soon write soliloquies for the server aisles, like we once did for rolling hills, and couples steam up the car windows parked in the artificial moonlight of vast data complexes, and power plant fog hangs heavy in the air, and it looms like storm clouds. And now hidden within the server stacks, the city wants to take us to visit the renderlands and the data farms, and we drive on through the Indian quarter of the city. Because in design studios of the West, the architects and directors sketch out their dreams and designs for imaginary cities and competition entries. But in India, across the other side of the planet, a massive anonymous workforce turn these wireframe worlds into the high-fidelity digital architectures of developer renderings, competition entries, and Hollywood blockbusters. The city introduces us to Prakash, a render farm worker who makes and shapes the digital worlds we all inhabit. And Prakash has fallen in love with the digital model of a beautiful Hollywood actress after spending 14 hours a day endlessly rotoscoping, rendering, and compositing her into blockbuster films. He is lovingly airbrushed across every pore on her face, every strand of her hair, as he 3D models her superhero silhouette, scene by scene, frame by frame, and day by day. And by night, when the fluorescents are switched off and everyone else has gone home, he straps on his VR goggles and they walk hand in hand through the streets of a city he's collaged together for them from scavenged VFX movie models and the leftover 3D assets that remain on Indian studio hard drives after a competition is lost. And we drive through a utopia that exists in the thickness of a screen. And the digital ephemera of the popular culture fills our physical spaces. We inhabit a virtual city that stretches from Los Angeles to Bangalore, a world of demolished landmarks, drowned cityscapes, alien invasions, and digital simulated actors, and our outsourced, pixel-projected dreams. And in a way, this is the physical world left behind when everything soon disappears into the lens of Google Glass or Oculus Rift. Perhaps modern film studios are an analogy to the urban spaces of City Everywhere, where we see the emergence of a new kind of architecture, a new type of ornament that's based on calibration crosshairs and blank walls, where architecture is stripped back to become the scaffolds and infrastructure for a digitally constructed world, where the city becomes an architecture that lies in wait, ready for the premiere of 1 million animated movies that will illuminate its surface with color and detail. And in a way, this is the future that technology promises us. This is the future of AR and VR urban landscapes.
You can move the old-fashioned way. Century 21. John Anderton! You can use vignettes right about now.
Escape from it all, Linda Lewis. What? John Anderton?
Forget your troubles with Blue.
John Anderton.
It's when we turn off this augmented world, when we turn off the bespoke billboards of Minority Report's urban spaces, when we turn off the tailored ads, the navigational prompts, the Tinder profiles, and the track status updates of our sci-fi cityscapes, we'll see a green screen studio world where everything has become a screen. And now as we keep on driving, we visit another apartment, an augmented apartment in an up-and-coming area of the city. Here, the renderings on developer billboards have become the inhabitable utopias of AR-fueled gentrification. And we visit one of the apartments, and we see a real estate agent showing a client around a digital construction site. And here, the physical shell of the building becomes a fixer-upper canvas, and building debris and unsightly neighbors can soon be hidden behind the rendered glow of our digital imaginaries. And the occupation of space can now be reimagined on individual scales, and each of us can be tuned to our own architectural channels. Okay, so what were you thinking? The real estate agent asks, as a Google image search box appears behind the door of the apartment. We have some lovely 21st century textures, early Floyd, classic Tilco, or for something really special, I can offer you one of our IKEA packs. Very eclectic, very tasteful, 100% uncustomized, the agent says. And a daybed winks out of existence to be replaced by a set of side tables in primary colors and a rectangular bookcase. Ooh, a lax, he says, and a billy, he exclaims. Ah, I can see that Sir is a connoisseur, the agent says, and she taps some more buttons and a low, blonde and laminate object starts to appear around the space. A Japanese-style bed overlays the couch, and he sinks down into it. His eyes gleamed over in an AR pixel glaze. And we get back in our taxi. And a dull roar fills the cabin as we drive. And I wind down a window, and in the distance, we can hear an audience going crazy. So Hatsune Miku is a 3D projection with a larger fan base than most living musicians, and the crowd waves their glow sticks for a digital ghost of the city. Hatsune is the pop star of our generation, a pop star for City Everywhere, the first animated pop star. And just like the Kardashians, the Hiltons, the bloggers, and the Instagram stars, she has no physical presence. She's just a media construction, an agglomeration of pixels. And to the beat of Hatsune's hologram, the young ravers dance with explosive contortions as they invent a new choreography that distorts the silhouette and disguises the proportions of their frame so as to evade body detection algorithms that's used by the city surveillance systems. And they do their makeup in the gloss black mirrors of their dead screens. And they reimagine their fashion cycles to follow the rate of Moore's law, the latest phone model or software update, rather than a change in natural season. And they adorn themselves in anti-facial recognition makeup and new camouflage textiles, a new hoodie that's designed to be invisible to the scanning technologies of the smart city. And their iridescent textiles reflect the light of CCTV laser scanners, creating exuberant glitches, distortions, and disturbances in the data set. And they hack the city, searching for the wilds beyond the machines. And we get back in our taxi, and the words "Hello City" blinks on the dashboard display. It indicates that our journey is at an end, and the system is rebooting. A Hello World program is a computer program that outputs Hello World onto a display system. It's a super simple program that's used to verify that a language or a system is operating correctly. Hello World burns onto the screen, announcing itself, telling us that everything is going to be just fine. But in a way, City Everywhere never gave us this warning. We aren't sure how it got here, but we're certainly not going to let it leave. It's just too seductive, too shiny, and too easy. And after our tour, perhaps we can see that our technologies, our buildings, our spaces are formed from this planetary-scaled machine, an infrastructure so large that it has become invisible, a machine so often disguised, ignored, or forgotten beyond the gloss of the screen, the seamless aluminium edge, or the glare of the pixel. But in City Everywhere, ideology rarely evolves at the same pace as our technology. But perhaps here, if we can understand and map these systems, then we can begin to reimagine them, to conjure new stories, new mythologies, and new technologies for a new city. And my watch tells me about a coffee machine it just met. And the city wraps us in a warm embrace.
Everything will be smart, connected, and make it all better.
The LEDs blink, and the cooling fans spin in the streets aligned with sensors.
In the future, everything will be smart, connected, and make it all better.
The electromagnetics hum, and it smells like it's going to rain.
In the future, everything will be smart, connected, and make it all better.
In the future, everything will be smart, connected, and make it all better. And in the future, everything will be smart, connected, and make it all better. And in the future, Everything will be smart, connected, and make it all better.
In the future, everything will be smart, connected, and make it all better.
In the future, everything will be smart, connected, and make it all better.
Thanks.